Hello everyone, welcome back to Lit League. In this video, we discuss the MCQs on literary critics because literary critics play a crucial role in literary theory and criticism, contributing to the understanding, interpretation, and appreciation of literature in various ways. Hence, the upcoming discussion is on only literary critics. Let's move on to the first question. Who is considered the founder of psychoanalytic literary criticism? The options are Sigmund Freud, Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, Roland Barthes. Let's move on to the answer. Sigmund Freud. Because Sigmund Freud is credited as the founder of psychoanalytic literary criticism, his theories on the unconscious mind, dreams, and the interpretation of symbols have had a profound influence on the analysis of literature, particularly in understanding the psychological motivations of characters and authors. Hence, the answer is Sigmund Freud. Let's move on to the next question. Which literary critic introduced the concept of the death of the author, arguing that the author's intentions should not limit the interpretation of a text? The options are Roland Barthes, Harold Bloom, Northrop Frye, and Edward Said. Let's move on to the answer. The answer is Roland Barthes. Because Roland Barthes introduced the concept of the death of the author in his essay of the same name. There, he argued that the authority of the author over the interpretation of a text should be diminished and that meaning is created through the act of reading rather than the author's intentions or biography. Hence, the answer is Roland Barthes. Let's move on to the third question. Who is known for their work in feminist literary criticism, particularly in analyzing the representation of women in literature and challenging patriarchal norms? The options are Judith Butler, Andrew Rich, Julia Kristeva, and Edward Said. The answer is Andrew Rich. Because she was a prominent feminist literary critic who focused on the representation of women in literature and the ways in which patriarchal structures shape literary works. Also, her essays and poems challenged traditional gender roles and advocated for women's voices to be heard in literature. Let's move on to the fourth question. This literary critic is associated with new criticism and introduced the concept of intentional fallacy, arguing against the importance of authorial intent in interpreting a text. The options: Edward Said, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, Chinua Achebe, Frantz Fanon. Let's move on to the answer. Edward Said. Because Edward Said was a foundational figure in post-colonial literary criticism. His book Orientalism analyzed the ways in which Western literature and scholarship represented and constructed the Orient as a subordinate and exotic other, perpetuating colonial power dynamics. Moving on to the fifth question. Who is known for their work in post-colonial literary criticism, particularly in examining the representation of colonized peoples and cultures in literature? The options: T.S. Eliot, W.K. Wimsatt, Clint Brooks, and F.R. Lewis. Let's move on to the answer. W.K. Wimsatt. Because W.K. Wimsatt, along with Monroe Beardsley, introduced the concept of the intentional fallacy in their essay, The Intentional Fallacy. They argued that interpreting a text based on the author's intention is fallacious because the meaning of a work should be derived from the text itself rather than the author's intentions. That's all about our today's discussion. I hope these questions cover a range of influential literary critics and their theories, providing a good overview of key concepts in literary criticism. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for joining with Lit League again. and I'll be meeting you in the upcoming videos in connection to the competitive exam questions. Thank you all.